In a small, modest home, a struggling father and his little kitten sat quietly at their worn dining table, sharing a simple meal. Though they had little, there was warmth between them, a fragile sense of peace that made their silence feel safe. But that calm was shattered when the mother burst into the room, her face twisted with anger. She stormed toward them, shouting and scolding, her voice echoing off the walls like thunder. The father, startled and ashamed, lowered his gaze and quickly hid his plate of food. The little kitten clutched his spoon, confused and frightened by the outburst. Without waiting for a word in response, the mother turned and left, her footsteps heavy with frustration. Moments later, she was seen dragging her suitcase to the car. She tossed it into the trunk and slammed it shut, her mind clearly made up. Just as she opened the car door, her little kitten rushed to her, grabbing her leg tightly, eyes full of silent pleas. "Please don't go," his body seemed to cry. But the mother, unmoved, gently pushed him aside, stepped into the car, and drove away, leaving a cloud of dust and a shattered heart behind. The kitten ran after the car, tiny feet stumbling over the gravel, but it was no use. The vehicle disappeared down the road, and the child dropped to his knees, tears spilling onto the earth. He had been left abandoned in a storm of confusion and sadness. Moments later, the father stepped out of the house, his own heart heavy with grief. He rushed to his son and held him close. There, in the fading light, father and son clung to each other, two broken souls trying to stay whole. Together, they wept not just for the one who had left, but for the love that had driven away. Days passed like gray clouds, quiet, slow, and heavy. The little home, once alive with the sounds of everyday life, now echoed with absence. The father did his best to keep things together. He cooked small meals, helped the kitten with his homework, and smiled through his sadness. But behind those tired eyes was a man barely holding on. The kitten stopped laughing. He no longer played with his toys or ran around the house like he used to. At night, he often stood at the window staring into the distance, hoping the car would return. But it never did. One evening, as rain softly tapped against the glass, the father found the kitten asleep on the floor, clutching an old photograph of the three of them smiling. He picked him up gently and held him close, whispering, "We'll be okay. I promise." It was then the father made a decision. He wouldn't let sadness raise his son. The next morning, he took a few coins from the jar beside the fridge and bought a used bicycle. It wasn't much, but it was something. He and the kitten rode through the park, feeling the breeze, letting the wind wipe away the tears neither of them spoke about. Slowly, laughter began to return, quiet at first, like a whisper, then louder, like spring returning after a long winter. They cooked together, painted old furniture, and sometimes just lay on the floor making shapes out of ceiling cracks. One evening, the kitten, now smiling a little more often, looked at his father and said, "It's not the same, but I'm glad you're here." The father's eyes welled up, but this time, the tears carried no grief-only love. They were still a family, not the one they had before, but a new one. And sometimes, healing begins not with answers, but with staying when someone chooses to stay. Seasons changed. The little kitten was growing taller, wiser, quieter. His eyes no longer searched the road every morning, but a small part of his heart still wondered, why did she leave? Would she ever come back? Miles away, the mother sat alone in a tidy but lifeless apartment. She had everything she thought. She wanted space, peace, freedom, but none of it filled the silence. Her phone stayed quiet. Her heart did not. Every night, she'd scroll through old photos, the father's clumsy smile, the kitten's joyful eye sand. She would cry in the dark. Pride kept her from dialing. Fear of not being forgiven kept her away. But love quietly grew inside her, like a wound that wanted to heal. One day, she packed a small bag. Not out of certainty, but hope. She drove for hours with trembling hands. She didn't know if they'd open the door, or if they should. Meanwhile, at home, the father and the kitten were planting a small garden in the backyard. The sun was kind that day. The laughter, real. The father was teaching him how to gently press seeds into the earth when the sound of tires on gravel made them pause. The kitten stood first. His heart beat faster than his thoughts. He peeked over the fence and froze. She was there, leaning against the car, nervous, regret in her eyes. She clutched a small gift-a-toy cat she'd once bought but never gave him. The father came behind, silent but strong. The three of them stood like that for a long, still moment. Then the kitten stepped forward, slowly, carefully. He looked into his mother's eyes, not with anger, but with something softer, sadness maybe, love that had survived hurt. And then he hugged her. She dropped to her knees, the toy falling to the ground. She wrapped him in her arms and sobbed. The father watched, his heart cracking and healing all at once. He didn't say a word. He just stepped closer and placed a hand on her shoulder. They didn't speak much that day. They didn't need to. Some stories aren't told in words, but in forgiveness, in returning, in starting over. That night, for the first time in a long time, the house felt full again, not perfect, not the same, but whole in a new way.